Is Saiyan Saga hype enough for Dokkan Battle? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We got another Dokkan Battle video for you here today. We are answering the question, is the Saiyan Saga hype enough to carry a major celebration in Dokkan Battle? Many of you guys had reached out to me and asked me to sort of give my thoughts on this whole discussion as it was occurring. And unfortunately, I was not able to jump on the bandwagon right away, as when the major discussion was occurring, I was in the middle of traveling back home to Hawaii from California. But now I'm home, and I figured, why not give my thoughts on this discussion? So in this video, I'm going to talk about why I think Saiyan Saga is actually quite hype and could carry a major celebration in Dokkan, as well as take a look and see at what some of your guys' thoughts are in the beginning. So, first and foremost, this whole discussion was started because of one game, Dragon Ball Legends, right? Dragon Ball Legends decided for their 7th anniversary to release a Saiyan Saga Kaioken Goku and Gallic Gun Vegeta, something Dokkan Battle players have been asking for a while. Now, we did receive this during the 7th anniversary Part 2 campaign, but the Kaioken wasn't voiced, and Vegeta was only grade 8. He didn't actually do the Gallic Gun. So that left room for the opportunity to do these units once more. Then, here in the 10th anniversary, both of those units from the 7th anniversary on Global have Easy Aid. Some feel a bit undertuned compared to what they expected, although Vegeta had a great glow up, let's be honest here. Goku felt a bit undertuned. Now, I have a working theory that when Dokkan tends to undertune an Easy A, it's because they have a brand new unit in mind coming soon. Does that mean it's this year? Not necessarily, but it could be soon. And, we do have a major celebration coming up. It would make sense for Saiyan Saga to take a bit of the spotlight for a huge celebration meant to celebrate Global's anniversary. After all, every time Saiyan Saga has shown up, it has done relatively well, right? If we look back at when it released during the 7th anniversary on JP, while it didn't get top grossing, the overall sales still continued throughout the entire celebration, making 7th anniversary one of the larger selling anniversaries to date. Then hopping on to Global, right? Global, because our top grossing is actually calculated a little bit different, we actually did get top grossing for Saiyan Saga. So despite people saying, Saiyan Saga isn't really that hype, enough people were willing to buy Dragon Stones to push it to the top of the store. Granted, it was only in 4 countries. That's still pretty good, to be completely honest, relative to kind of where we were previously. Remember, the previous anniversary, the 6th anniversary, was one of the worst selling anniversaries to date. Now, there were some global factors that obviously affected that, but I mean, this is a huge step up for part 2, especially, right? Considering that previous anniversary part 2s didn't really get top grossing either. Or at least none that I could find. Combine that with the second time Saiyan Saga appeared in a major celebration, and I know this might be pushing it a bit, but I do consider this Saiyan Saga, right? Part 2 of the 8th anniversary centered around the Genki Dama, the Spirit Bomb. Kid Gohan, Saiyan Saga, Kai Goku, most of his animations come from the Dragon Soul opening, where it is mostly the Kai Z fighters in Saiyan Saga. I would say that it getting top grossing in these two regions, I would say that shows that, hey, it actually did pretty good. Again, enough people supported it in these regions to get it to top grossing, and that's not to say it didn't do well in other regions too, right? Like, even in the US, it still did pretty good. Like, it's not like it was like way at the bottom of the app store during these times. Now, unfortunately, Sensor Tower doesn't let us go all the way back to those dates, so I couldn't tell you exactly where it placed, but I do remember, right, there were a lot of countries that it was coming close to, right? And we just weren't sure if we were going to get it because we were up against some of these other big name gachas at the time. But that's not it was still enough to push, at least in Belgium and France. And even on JP too, right? JP did get, now this took me a minute to find, but JP did get top grossing for part 2 as well. So, right, I mean, that just shows you, right? Despite the fact that most people say, hey, it's not hype, it doesn't sell, it did sell 4 times, in fact, if you count both global and JP. And if you count each region separately, even more so. So the fact of the matter is, most people do consider Saiyan Saga to be pretty hype, right? It's the foundation of the series. Every single Western audience member for Dragon Ball began with this part of the series, right? Began with the Saiyan Saga, began with this clash between Goku and Vegeta here, right? That ultimate beam clash that we all have grown to love right here, right? The Kaioken times 4 and the Gallic Gun, right? Dokkan has the perfect opportunity with the upcoming GDC, or heck, even Tanabata, really, right? Or whatever it's going to be called next, to redo these and make it sell, right? We have long wanted a voiced Kaioken times 4. We have long wanted a voiced Gallic Gun, right? These 2 units have had several different iterations within the game, and right, Dokkan even recognizes it enough, right? Like 2 random banner unit Goku and Vegetas have an Extreme Z battle because they are this battle, right? The Destined Rivals, Fizz, I think Vegeta's Fizz, Goku is Tech, right? Like they have an Extreme Z battle, despite other versions of other characters from other major battles not having EZA battles because they're banner units, right? But these guys did. So I mean, I think that says a lot about how Dokkan views the celebration. And I mean, the fact that Legends, even after Dokkan supposedly fumbled Saiyan Saga twice, Legends still decided to put it as its part 2 for 7th anniversary. So I think, I mean, that shows that the devs do have faith in it as well. So a possible Saiyan Saga coming up, I think would do a lot. I think it would do pretty well. One of the biggest arguments against it not selling is because, well, Dokkan is not doing well. And I wanted to acknowledge that, right? Always try to acknowledge the counterpoint. So, like, if we look at where Dokkan is right now, right? So this is from Gacha revenue, right? We can see here that in the months leading up to anniversary, right? Which was, right, in January and December here, right? Dokkan was doing incredibly well, but of course it always does well in these months leading into and the start of the anniversary because, right, it's the biggest celebration of the year. People in these months, people are stocking up, they're prepping, they're getting ready. Plus, this was the introduction of Daima, so that really helped as well. And then, of course, you know, the 10th anniversary. But you can see as we started approaching into the final parts of the anniversary, right? Things dropped here. Things dropped tremendously compared to where it was. And that is actually pretty typical. Now, unfortunately, Gacha revenue doesn't let me go past December. But if we were to look back at previous years, we would see the same trends, right? We would see the dip right after in March, right? Because that first Dokkan Fest post anniversary typically doesn't do too well. Last year it was First Form Frieza. Year before it was 17 and 17, right? And then there is a slight pickup at Saiyan Day, but it really depends on the unit. And every year it's been slightly different, but it's never been enough to push it out of this to make it anywhere close to what it was at the anniversary. So it's, you know, the month of March is always going to be down, right? Then moving into April, April is usually a dead month in JP. On global, it actually tends to do a little bit better because this is also the New Year's Dokkan Fest. So these sales you would typically see here, you kind of sometimes see over here. Not a lot, but enough, right? But again, still not a lot to take it out of this little slump right here. Global is actually in usually a really bad place here because you see the big New Year's time sales, right, from people summoning on the step-ups, but then you have a huge dip in February on global, whereas on JP, right, that's where it's at its highest. But of course, this year, that's a little bit different, right? And then again, and then in April, typically another dip. and then things come back during Golden Week. Now, Golden Week this year was Super Saiyan Blue, Kaioken, Goku, and Hit. And despite the fact that the units were a bit undertuned, although Hit's pretty good, it still sold pretty well, bringing it out of this little slump that it was in from the month prior. Global kind of remained relatively consistent, but you see overall the numbers across Global are actually are actually doing a lot better than they are on JP. So that's I mean, that just shows that, I mean, this is following pretty typical patterns. So I would imagine that once we see the once they update for the month of June here, what we're going to see is Global actually is going to take a dip than what it would normally see. See, normally Global is going to see this little bump right here at this time as well, because it's pre-anniversary for Global. So most people are like stocking up their stones, getting ready. You're not typically seeing people buying to summon for Frieza. You're seeing people buy to prep up for the anniversary. So I imagine like this month would be typically lower, for June would be typically lower for Global this year than it is in the year prior. But I would say across the board, you're going to see a pretty low amount of sales for June, right? So the big argument here is, well, Dokkan's actually doing bad, and therefore it should, it needs to release the hypest thing ever to make up for that. But the reality is that doesn't really, I mean, that doesn't change anything, right? Global and JP are maintaining the trends that they've maintained years and years prior, with even similar numbers, although I think 10th anniversary is on track to be one of the highest grossing we've had so far. I would have to double check the numbers on that to see what 7th anniversary made. But I would say that it's on track compared to numbers I've seen in previous years when I looked it up, and unfortunately the website doesn't let me go back. But I would say that it's on track. So what we'll typically see, right, the next month of July, this would have been Global's anniversary and Tanabata on JP. So there would be a spike in sales anyways because of those numbers. So whatever is coming, it's going to carry, right? It's going to carry just like it always does, right? And I think Saiyan Saga is good enough to carry that. And, you know, there might be those of you, well, what do you do outside of the two major units there, right? Everybody, we get these two as the two Dokkan Fests. Okay, but then what next? If you want to carry the hype, you could do like a part 2, right? So part 1, Dokkan Fests, Goku and Vegeta, and part 2 can kind of be like, supporting cast members, right? So, a Krillin, right? Krillin deserves some Carnival treatment, right? So they could do the dual Dokkan Fest and Carnival part 2 like they've done in the past, although I think they've been kind of sticking with the Carnival versus Dokkan Fest. So you could have a Carnival Spirit Bomb Krillin, and Dokkan Fest and Carnival part 1, and then his counterpart that could be like a new Vegeta and Nappa, or like a tag Vegeta and Nappa, where Nappa is kind of the focus as opposed to Vegeta. That would be pretty good, right? Or even just like the finally like the LRZ fighters, right? We've been wanting that for a while. Kai Goku was like the closest we got to it, but like truly an LRZ fighters would be really good here. And I mean, hey, maybe that's not the thing, right? Maybe Saiyan Saga is just a part of it, right? Maybe that's the opener to this major celebration. Part 1, Saiyan Saga, and then part 2 leads into Namek Saga, right? The big saga that everybody's waiting for them to redo. We get the redo animations of the Super Saiyan into Frieza, right? This could easily be done, and this would I would say, like, if this were the setup for the celebration, part 1, like we're talking early Z into Super Saiyan, right? We get this as our part 1 and this is our part 2. That's a hype celebration to me. That's a great celebration in my honest opinion. And some people might be like, well, Super Saiyan Goku and Frieza are obviously going to be better than Kaioken and Great Galacon Vegeta. Well, you can't have part 2 better than part 1. Well, that's not true, because we've had that before. Literally Beast Gohan, right? He was better than every single member of the 9th anniversary. And you want to go again, right? STR Gohan was arguably the best unit to come out of Worldwide last year, and he was part 2. It's not the first time this happened. Future Gohan from Worldwide the year before, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with part 2 being better than part 1, right? Part 1's just the opener. You make this hype, you make this good, people are going to summon. people are going to buy. It's just the fact of the matter. I would say the majority of players, I think, are more interested in this than people realize, right? I think the people who think Saiyan Saga are unhyped is a vocal minority, right? One of the bigger, the last thing I want to close out with is people are like, well, we need Daima now because this isn't hype. Well, Daima's going to have the same problem as a possible Saiyan Saga, right? People are saying, well, Saiyan Saga can't fill a whole celebration. Well, I just showed you it could. But people are saying Saiyan Saga couldn't fill a whole celebration. Well, Daima has the same problem, right? Daima has, you know, you're going to have Super Saiyan 4 Goku here, right? They could skip ahead and go straight to adult. I doubt it. I think we're going to go with mini first, which means we're going to get mini Super Saiyan 4 Goku or adult Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and possibly his counterpart being Goma. Well, then who do you fill out the rest of it with, right? You have the same problem you have with the Saiyan Saga, right? Oh, well, who do you do besides Goku Vegeta? Well, you could do, like, Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta and the Tamagamis, right? But you end up with the same situation. Like, what? There's no difference in hype between, you know, a possible, you know, part 1 of this and then whoever you would fill with part 2, and then throwing in just random characters that had all of 3 animations, right? They could do the Tamagamis all together as one, but I mean, they're not going to be carrying any of the hype of their part 1. Ultra Vegeta, maybe, but at the same time, right, you know, people are, I feel like people aren't as fond of this form as I am, but I could be wrong there. But you essentially have some of the same problems here, throwing out Daima. And to be honest, Daima's numbers, right? While Daima was airing, people did not like Daima. I think we're forgetting about this. Like, people did not like it while it was airing, pretty much all the way up until Super Saiyan 4 dropped. And even then, a lot of people don't like it because of the callback to GT. It just, you know, so I mean, personally, I'm hyped for it. I like Daima, and I loved it all the way through, from the adventure aspect all the way to the end. But we can't sit here and act like everybody loved Daima the way they loved the original run of Dragon Ball Z in the beginning with Saiyan Saga. People didn't. People complained about it being too slow, being too adventure-y, being unhyped. Right? It didn't get hype until this moment for most people, and so I think we do forget that, which I think in turn kind of affects, right, how we're going to view everything else, right? We're looking back at Daima with rose-colored glasses, you know. So either way, I mean, personally, I think any of these options are hype, right? Even if it's just like Namek Saga or, you know, Daima or GT or, you know, Saiyan Saga, which I would personally like to see. Any of these are hype. The reality is, as a Dragon Ball fan, there's not a piece of this content that I don't enjoy, but that's just my opinion. So I did want to close out here, just taking a little bit of a look at what some of you guys were saying about what some of you guys were saying about the possibility of a Saiyan Saga. So we have, I hope I say this right, Seriali, here on Twitter, right? Think it's considered hype enough to be part of the major celebration. Dokkan and LegendsNewz did it for 7th anniversaries. You don't think it could work with full-on anniversary GTC, but it could definitely work as Golden Week, Tanabata, or New Year's. Now, I do agree, and again, Saiyan Saga doesn't have to be the full celebration, you know, but it could be the opener. Right, it could be the opener, but again, we've seen that it can be part of these major celebrations. We have Bagon here. You feel like it's hype enough, but there are no part 2 units from it, so I doubt it would be a great major celebration like GDC, but Goku and Vegeta are plenty hype enough for part 1 and 2, right? Again, it doesn't have to be the full celebration. We've seen multiple times where, right, celebrations span arcs, right? The Worldwide 2023, for example, right? Not every single unit was from the Dragon Ball Super Future arc. You had Future Gohan. You had a lot of the EZAs from the Z arc of Future. The Worldwide last year, not every single movie, not every single character was from Broly Movie 8. Each character was from a different movie. Cooler Movie, same thing, right? Anniversaries, same thing, right? You have these celebrations that span multiple arcs, right? Even 7th anniversary. 7th anniversary began with the end of Super and ended with the beginning of Z, beginning and end of Goku and Vegeta's rivalry, right? So it doesn't have to be the full thing. And right, even this, right? So like I had come back to Bagon, right? We could argue the same for Diamond. Diamond doesn't have enough to carry a part 2 either, right? And that's why we want Resurrection of F and Namek. It's the same thing, right? It's not one singular arc, so you could easily make it work. You could go Saiyan Saga into Namek, and I think it would work just fine. Although I do think Resurrection of F does have a bit of justification for being this major celebration, given that it is the 10th anniversary of the movie, I believe. So, you know, there is that. Platinum here for major celebrations, Dokkan and Legends Part 2. Not sure if it's hype enough to be the Part 1 headliner compared to Fusions, GT, Beast, or UI. Of course, it's a Saiyan Saga themed major celebration, like Namek Saga WWC, then it could be Part 1. Yeah, so pretty much what I've been saying, right? It could be the Part 1 leading into Part 2. And I think it can be, right? It's all in how they sell the units and how they build the units. And I think more people actually do care about Saiyan Saga than people let on. So we also did a post here on our community post. So we have Derpy Gamer here. As a fairly dedicated Legends player for the past 2.5 years, a slightly less dedicated Dokkan player for the past 1.5 years, along with being formally introduced to Dragon Ball IP around the time I started playing Legends, I would certainly say Saiyan Saga is hype in general, as of one of the most iconic beam struggles, poses, and opposing characters. Goku and Vegeta isn't hype enough. I don't know how y'all rationalize else as such. This arc is the one that started the most beloved and well-known portion of Dragon Ball's run. While it may not be grand in scale as the series' later moments, not only the anniversary of both games, coincidentally their 7th anniversaries, would go as far to call it headliner worthy. See, right now, this is always the comeback I get, right, from these people, from a lot of people, is that, you know, it's always the newer people, the people who start Dragon Ball at Super, or recent fans who just can't appreciate Saiyan Saga. But that's not true right here. As Derpy Gamer mentions, right, they started Dragon Ball 2 years ago when they started playing Legends, and even they recognize how iconic this beam struggle is. So thank you, Derpy Gamer, for that comment. Eugene here, rest well. Don't think Saiyan Saga is hype enough by itself. The peaks of DB as a whole kind of overshadow it. See, now I personally disagree with this statement. I think a lot of what we view as peak is subjective, and I think the beginning of Z deserves a spotlight. Personally, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I understand, right? You know, if you're pitting that fight up against, say, Vegito versus Zamasu, I can understand that. But personally, I'm on the other side of this. But again, this by itself comment, right? If we compared it with Namek versus Frieza, right, this could work. Alex Siegel, hopefully you weren't caught up. Oh, okay. So this is just wishing me a safe trip. Well, thank you to Alec. Appreciate it. Kokoro, hype, not hype enough. Both Legends and Dokkan released them as part 2 of the 7th anniversary with people not happy. So I actually did come back on this one, right? To mention that, right? We say people are not happy, and yet it hit top grossing, right? Especially on Dokkan. I actually don't know if it hit top grossing on Legends, but it did on Dokkan, as we showed earlier, right? Both times that it appeared. And to the idea of people not being happy about it, I did want to bring this up, right? The reality is the people that are not happy are a vocal minority. Enough people are liking it enough to buy it, which says a lot, right? That does say a lot, right? Even with the fact when we go back and we look at the fact that Kyogen, Goku, and Great Ape Vegeta at the time of their release were pretty undertuned, right? They were not Red Zone worthy. They were definitely designed with the content before in mind, and yet people still bought in. Right, I think that that's worthy of note, that it was good enough for people to justify summoning. So, and I do believe that is all the comments that we had. So, I do really appreciate everybody taking the time to comment, and I will close out with this. In my opinion, Saiyan Saga is hype, and it could carry part 1 of a major celebration. And that this idea that the sales right now in Dokkan are so low that it doesn't matter, the reality, and we need something super hype. The reality is it's no different than any other year. If we look back at the trends, as I showed, pretty much follows. So I don't think Dokkan is in any kind of bad space that we need to be concerned that we need something like a brand new Vegito Blue, which I doubt we're getting anytime soon, to make up for it. So guys, that is it for the video. If you guys like the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and in the comments down below, let us know, do you believe Saiyan Saga is hype? If you didn't get a chance to comment before, take your time now. Let us know. Do you think it is hype enough for a major celebration? Again, personally, I do, but I'm curious to see what you all think in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.